My name is Alex Morgan. I'm 35 years old, and the dumbest decision of my life lasted exactly 3 seconds. 3 seconds. That's how long I kissed Claire Bennett. 3 seconds that turned a room full of laughing friends completely silent. 3 seconds that made someone drop a beer. 3 seconds that changed everything. The funny part? It was her idea. At least that's what everyone kept saying afterward. She dared you. She started it. It was just a joke. Maybe. But jokes aren't supposed to keep you awake at 3 in the morning. And they definitely aren't supposed to ruin a friendship. The night started at Jake Turner's birthday party. Jake and I had been friends since college. The kind of friendship built on bad decisions and worse advice. His apartment was packed. Music, pizza boxes, people talking too loudly, the usual birthday chaos. I arrived around 8, and Claire was already there. Of course she was. Claire was always early. The woman treated social events like airport departures. If something started at 8, she'd arrive at 7:45. She was sitting on the kitchen counter talking to a group of friends when I walked in. The moment she saw me, she smiled. Not a big smile. Not a warm smile. The Claire smile. The one that usually meant trouble. Look who finally showed up. I grabbed a soda from the fridge. The party started 20 minutes ago. Exactly. She pointed at her watch. Late. I have a life. Claire laughed. No, you don't. The annoying part? She was right. That earned a few laughs from the people standing nearby. I sat across from her. Nice dress. She narrowed her eyes. Immediately suspicious. Was that a compliment? Don't get used to it. Too late. For the next hour, we did what we always did. Argued. Not real arguments. The playful kind. The kind everyone around us had gotten used to. At one point, Jake's girlfriend sat beside me and quietly asked, "So when are you two finally going to admit it?" I nearly choked on my drink. Admit what? She rolled her eyes. The same way people roll their eyes at children pretending something obvious isn't obvious. You know exactly what. I didn't. Or maybe I did. I just didn't want to talk about it. Because the truth was complicated. Claire and I had known each other for almost a year. We met through mutual friends. Started hanging out in the same group. Started texting. Started calling. Somewhere along the way she became the person I wanted to tell things to first. And that was a dangerous realization. Because once you start feeling that way about someone, friendship becomes a risky place to live. Around 10:30 someone suggested a game. Terrible idea. The kind that only sounds fun after a few drinks. Everyone agreed immediately, which should have been a warning sign. 5 minutes later we were sitting in a circle on Jake's living room floor. And someone spun a bottle. That's when everything started going wrong. The bottle spun twice. 3 times. Then slowed. And stopped directly in front of Claire. A chorus of cheers erupted immediately. Claire groaned. Already regretting coming. You always regret coming. Jake laughed. Truth or dare? Claire looked around the room. Then smiled. Dare. Of course she picked dare. She was the kind of person who'd rather jump off a bridge than answer a personal question. The group immediately began shouting suggestions. Most of them terrible. Some of them illegal. Then Jake's girlfriend pointed across the circle. Toward me. And suddenly everyone became interested. Very interested. I knew that look. Friends are dangerous when they're bored. Especially friends who think 2 people belong together. Claire noticed it too. Oh no. People started laughing. Someone said, "Do it." Someone else said, "Please do it." Claire covered her face. I hate all of you. That only encouraged them. Then she looked at me, a challenge already forming in her eyes. The room grew quieter. Not silent. Expectant. Like everyone knew something was coming. Claire crossed her arms. Still smiling. Still completely convinced she was in control. Then she said it. I dare you to kiss me. The room exploded. People laughed. Someone dropped a chip. Jake nearly fell off the couch. Because obviously it was a joke. Everyone knew it was a joke. Including Claire. Especially Claire. She was already laughing. Already looking around the room. Waiting for my reaction. Waiting for me to roll my eyes. Waiting for me to refuse. The problem was, I couldn't stop looking at her. Because for almost a year I'd imagined kissing Claire Bennett. A lot. far more than I should have. And suddenly she was sitting 3 feet away, looking directly at me, daring me. The room faded. The laughter faded. Everything faded. For one strange moment it felt like there were only two people left. Me and Claire. She smiled, still expecting me to say no. Then her smile slowly disappeared, because she realized something. I wasn't laughing. For the first time that night, neither of us was. The room grew quieter. Not because anyone understood what was happening, because everyone sensed it. Something had changed. Claire stared at me, and for the first time since I'd known her, she looked nervous. Just a little. Just enough. Alex. Her voice sounded different, like she wasn't sure where this was going anymore. Neither was I, but I already knew one thing. If I backed down now, I'd regret it for years. So I leaned forward and kissed her. Not dramatically, not like in a movie, just one kiss. 3 seconds, maybe less, maybe more. Long enough for the entire apartment to go completely silent. Long enough for Claire's eyes to widen. Long enough for both of us to realize this wasn't a joke anymore. When I pulled back, nobody spoke. Nobody moved. The entire room looked frozen, including Claire, especially Claire, because she was staring at me like she'd just seen a ghost. And somehow, I had a feeling the real problem was only beginning. Nobody said a word. Not immediately. Not for several very uncomfortable seconds. Then Jake stood up, pointed at me, and shouted, "What the hell?" The entire room exploded. Everyone started talking at once, laughing, yelling, demanding explanations. Meanwhile, I wasn't paying attention to any of them. I was looking at Claire, because Claire wasn't laughing. That scared me. A lot. For months, I'd imagined 100 possible outcomes. None of them looked like this. She stood up, slowly, still staring at me. Then she grabbed her purse and walked toward the front door. My stomach dropped immediately. Someone called after her. Someone laughed. Someone asked where she was going. Claire ignored all of them. The apartment door opened, then closed, and she was gone. The room suddenly felt much colder. Jake looked at me. "What did you do?" I stared at him. "She dared me." "You're not supposed to actually do it." That earned another round of laughter. Unfortunately, nobody seemed interested in helping me. I spent another 30 minutes pretending I wasn't panicking. Then I left. The drive home was miserable. Every possible scenario played through my head. Maybe I'd ruined everything. Maybe she'd never speak to me again. Maybe I'd completely misread the situation. By midnight, I was still awake. At 1 o'clock, I checked my phone. Nothing. At 2 o'clock, I checked again. Still nothing. At 3 o'clock, I started questioning every decision I'd made that evening. Then my phone buzzed. I grabbed it immediately. "Claire." Just one message. "Why did you do that?" I stared at the screen for nearly a minute, because I knew this answer mattered. More than anything I'd said all year. Finally, I typed, "Because I've wanted to for months." I hit send, then immediately regretted it. Too honest. Way too honest. The typing bubble appeared, disappeared, appeared again, then disappeared completely. No reply. I slept terribly. The next morning wasn't any better. By noon, I still hadn't heard from her. By evening, I was convinced she'd blocked me. Then my phone rang. "Claire." I answered instantly. "Hi." Smooth. Very smooth. There was silence on the other end. Then Claire sighed. A long sigh. The kind people make when they're about to deal with a problem. "Can we talk?" My stomach tightened. "Sure." Another pause. Then she said something completely unexpected. "Not on the phone." That couldn't be good. "Okay. Tomorrow." "Tomorrow." Silence. Then Claire laughed. A nervous laugh. The first laugh I'd heard from her since the kiss. And somehow that scared me even more. Because Claire Bennett only laughed like that when something mattered. And judging by the way my heart was pounding, this mattered a lot. The next day felt longer than it should have. Work was impossible. Not because I had too much to do. Because my brain refused to think about anything except Claire. Emails piled up. Messages went unanswered. At one point, I spent 10 minutes staring at the same spreadsheet, without reading a single number. Around 6 o'clock, I finally got another text. "The coffee shop on Maple Street. 7. That was it. No smiley face. No explanation. No hint about whether I was about to get rejected. Perfect. I arrived 10 minutes early, which annoyed me, because Claire was usually the early one. Yet somehow she'd infected me with her habits. The coffee shop was nearly empty. Just a few students. An older couple near the window. And me, waiting. Again. At exactly 7 o'clock Claire walked in. And my heart immediately did something stupid. Because she looked beautiful. Not dressed up. Not trying. Just Claire. Which was somehow worse. She spotted me. Walked over. Sat down. And neither of us spoke. For almost 20 seconds. Finally she broke the silence. That was a really stupid thing to do. I nodded. Probably. Definitely. That almost made her smile. Almost. Then she looked out the window, like she was organizing her thoughts. Something Claire did whenever she was nervous. Which wasn't often. I haven't stopped thinking about it. The confession caught me off guard. Not because of what she said. Because she admitted it. Claire wasn't the type to admit vulnerability. Ever. I leaned forward. Neither have I. A small laugh escaped her. More sad than amused. Yeah. Silence returned. Then she asked, "Did you mean what you texted?" My stomach tightened immediately, because I knew exactly what she meant. I've wanted to for months. There was no safe answer now. No joke. No escape route. So I told the truth. Yes. Claire looked down. Then nodded. Like she'd expected that. Like part of her had already known. For several seconds she played with her coffee cup. Then quietly said, "That's a problem." My chest sank. Immediately. Of course it was. Why else would we be here? I looked at her. Waiting. Then she finally said the words that changed everything. "I'm engaged." The world seemed to stop. Not dramatically. Just enough. Enough for every sound in the coffee shop to disappear. Enough for my heartbeat to become painfully loud. I stared at her, certain I'd heard wrong. But the expression on her face told me I hadn't. And suddenly, the kiss at Jake's party became a lot more complicated than either of us expected. For a moment, I genuinely thought she was joking. Not because it was funny, because it was easier than accepting what she'd just said. Engaged. Claire nodded. Once. Slowly. Like saying it out loud made it more real. My stomach dropped. Hard. Because in nearly a year of knowing her, she had never mentioned a fiancé. Not once. "You're engaged." I hated how stupid I sounded. But I couldn't help it. Claire looked exhausted. "I know. No, I mean..." I stopped. 'Cause I didn't even know what I meant. I was trying to understand how someone could be weeks away from marrying another person and still kiss me back. Claire stared into her coffee. Then quietly said, "His name is Ryan." The name immediately annoyed me. For no reason other than existing. We've been together 3 years. 3 years. That somehow made it worse. A lot worse. I leaned back in my chair, trying very hard not to look hurt. Failing completely. "Why didn't you tell me?" Claire laughed. A short, bitter laugh. "Because nobody at Jake's parties talks about their relationships." That wasn't entirely true. But I understood her point. Still, 3 years. An engagement. A wedding. And somehow I never knew. Then Claire surprised me. Again. "The wedding is in 6 weeks. My chest tightened. 6 weeks. Not 6 months. Not next year. 6 weeks. The realization hit like a truck. Because suddenly this wasn't some distant problem. This was real. Very real. For several moments neither of us spoke. Then I asked the question I probably shouldn't have. "But you're not happy." Claire froze. Completely froze. And that told me everything. Because happy people answer immediately. Happy people don't stare out windows searching for words. Happy people don't kiss someone else at a birthday party. Finally she sighed. The kind of sigh that sounded years old. "I care about him." Not the answer. Not even close. I noticed she didn't say she loved him. And judging by the look on her face, she noticed it too. Claire rubbed her forehead. Then looked at me. For the first time all evening. Really looked at me. And what she said next completely caught me off guard. "I'm angry at you." I blinked. "What?" "I'm angry at you." She repeated it. Clearer this time. I stared at her. Confused. "Why?" The answer came immediately. because she'd clearly been carrying it around for a while. Because you waited. The words landed harder than I expected. Waited. Claire nodded. Months. Another nod. Maybe longer. I didn't know what to say, because she wasn't wrong. I had waited. A lot. Then she looked away, her voice suddenly much quieter. If you'd told me a year ago. She stopped. My heartbeat immediately doubled. 'Cause now I needed to hear the rest. Needed it. But Claire never finished the sentence. Instead, she stood up, grabbed her coat, and said something that left me staring after her long after she'd walked away. If you'd told me a year ago. She smiled sadly. I don't think there would have been a wedding to plan. I didn't sleep much that night. Not because of what Claire had said. Because of what she hadn't. The unfinished sentence kept replaying in my head. If you'd told me a year ago. Then nothing. No explanation. No answer. Just enough to make me wonder. And wondering is dangerous. Especially at 2 in the morning. The next week was torture. Claire disappeared. Not literally. She still answered group messages. Still showed up when friends got together. Still liked photos online. But whenever I was around, something changed. She became careful. And Claire Bennett was not a careful person. She was blunt, direct, fearlessly honest. Except now. Now she avoided being alone with me, which told me everything I needed to know. The problem wasn't the kiss. The problem was that neither of us regretted it. 2 weeks later, Jake invited everyone to a barbecue. Normally, I would have said no, but hiding wasn't helping. So I went. Big mistake. Claire was there. Of course she was. Standing in the backyard talking to a man I'd never seen before. Tall. Well-dressed. Expensive watch. Perfect smile. I knew who he was immediately. Ryan. The fiancé. The man I'd spent 2 weeks hating despite never meeting him. Fantastic. Jake appeared beside me. You okay? No. Good. Good. He laughed. You look exactly how someone should look after accidentally falling in love with the wrong woman. I hated how accurate that was. For the next hour, I did my best to avoid looking at Claire. And failed. Repeatedly. Because Ryan wasn't doing anything wrong. That was the worst part. He seemed nice. Genuinely nice. The kind of guy parents immediately approve of. The kind of guy who remembers birthdays. The kind of guy who never forgets anniversaries. The kind of guy you're supposed to marry. Yet every time Claire laughed at one of his jokes, felt forced. Not fake. Just practiced. Like she'd heard those jokes before. Many times before. Then something happened. Small. Almost invisible. Ryan walked inside to grab drinks. Claire turned around. And her eyes immediately found me. Across the entire backyard. 30 people. Music. Conversation. None of it mattered. For 1 second it felt exactly like the night of the party. Just the two of us. Then she looked away first. And somehow that hurt more than if she'd kept staring. Later that evening, while everyone else was eating dessert, I found myself alone on the back porch. Exactly where I wanted to be. Away from everyone. Away from Claire. Away from Ryan. Unfortunately, life had other plans. The porch door opened. I already knew who it was before turning around. Claire. She stepped outside, closed the door behind her, and for several seconds neither of us spoke. Then she quietly said, Ryan asked if something happened between us. Every muscle in my body tightened. Immediately. What did you tell him? Claire looked out into the dark yard, then answered. I lied. The words hung between us. Heavy. Dangerous. Because suddenly I realized something. This story wasn't heading toward a wedding anymore. It was heading toward a decision. I stared at her. You lied. Claire nodded. Once. Slowly. Like she wasn't proud of it. Because she wasn't. What did you tell him? A humorless smile appeared. I told him nothing happened. The answer should have made me feel better. Didn't. Because we both knew it wasn't true. Something had happened. Maybe not in the way Ryan meant. But something definitely happened. Claire leaned against the porch railing. The night air was cool. The sounds of laughter drifted from inside the house. Everyone else was having a normal evening. Lucky them. I hate this. Her voice was barely above a whisper. I believed her. Completely. What are you going to do? Claire laughed. A tired laugh. I was hoping you'd know. That surprised me. Because Claire always knew what to do. Always. Except apparently not this time. For several moments, neither of us spoke. Then she looked directly at me and asked the question she'd been avoiding for weeks. Why didn't you say something sooner? There it was. The question behind every other question. The one that mattered. I looked down at my hands, then answered honestly. Because I thought I had time. Claire closed her eyes. Immediately, like that answer hurt. A lot. I thought there would be another party. A pause. Another weekend. Another pause. Another chance. The words sounded stupid now. Painfully stupid. Because that's how people lose things. They assume there will always be more time. Claire looked away. Toward the backyard. Toward the people laughing. Toward the life she'd spent months building. Then she quietly said, Ryan proposed last winter. I said nothing. She continued. I said yes after 3 seconds. The irony wasn't lost on either of us. 3 seconds. The same amount of time our kiss lasted. Claire laughed softly. Everyone told me I was lucky. A pause. He was kind. Another pause. Reliable. Another pause. Safe. Then she looked at me. And that's the problem. My heart immediately started racing. Because I knew what she meant. Safe wasn't love. Safe was comfort. Safe was certainty. Safe was what people chose when they were afraid of being wrong. The porch door opened. Both of us turned. Ryan stepped outside and immediately stopped. The moment he saw us, something changed in his expression. Not anger. Not yet. Recognition. Like a puzzle piece finally falling into place. For several seconds, nobody spoke. Then Ryan looked at Claire. Only Claire. And quietly asked, Is it him? The question hit harder than shouting ever could. Because there was no accusation in it. Only sadness. Real sadness. Claire's face went pale. Completely pale. And in that moment, Ryan got his answer. Without her saying a single word. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. The silence felt endless. Ryan looked at Claire. Claire looked at the ground. And somehow that was worse than any answer she could have given. For several seconds, the only sound was the music drifting from inside the house. Then Ryan nodded. Once. Slowly. Like he'd just understood something he'd been trying not to understand for months. Okay. Claire's head snapped up. Ryan. But he gently shook his head. Not angry. Not even surprised. Just tired. Very tired. The kind of tired that comes from fighting a battle you've already lost. When? His voice remained calm, which somehow made everything hurt more. Claire swallowed. Hard. I don't know. Ryan laughed softly. A sad laugh. That's not true. Nobody argued. Because everyone knew it wasn't. Ryan looked toward me. For the first time all evening. I expected anger. Expected accusations. Expected something. Instead, he simply nodded. Like a man acknowledging reality. Then he looked back at Claire. And asked the question that mattered. Do you love him? My heart nearly stopped. Claire froze. Completely froze. The answer should have been easy. Either yes or no. Instead, tears appeared in her eyes. And that told us everything. Ryan smiled sadly. Then looked away. Because he didn't need to hear the words anymore. He already had. A few minutes later he left. No scene. No shouting. No dramatic ending. Just a man walking away from something he finally understood he couldn't keep. The front door closed. The sound echoed through the house. And suddenly it was just us. Me and Claire. Standing on a porch. Staring at the place where her future had just disappeared. Neither of us spoke. For a long time. Then Claire started crying. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Quietly. The kind of crying that comes after holding something in for too long. I stepped closer. Not touching her. Just standing beside her. Giving her space. Eventually she laughed through the tears. This is such a mess. I smiled. Yeah. A small laugh escaped her. Then she wiped her eyes. Looked at me. Really looked at me. And asked, Do you know what's funny? I shook my head. What? Another laugh. This one warmer. Softer. The dare wasn't a joke. I stared at her. Certain I'd heard wrong. But Claire was smiling now. A nervous smile. The kind people wear when they're about to tell the truth. The room thought it was a joke. A pause. I wanted to know. My heartbeat immediately doubled. Wanted to know what? Claire stepped closer. Close enough that I could see the nervousness in her eyes. Close enough to realize she was just as scared as I was. Then she answered, "If you'd actually do it." For a second, the entire world seemed to disappear, because suddenly everything made sense. The dare, the panic, the kiss, the weeks of confusion, all of it. Claire smiled. A real smile, the one I'd been falling for since the day we met. Then she whispered, "And honestly, Alex." A tiny laugh escaped her. "I was hoping you would." The next morning felt strangely quiet. Not peaceful, just different. For the first time in weeks, there was no uncertainty. No wondering. No pretending. Only consequences. Around noon my phone buzzed. Claire. Just seeing her name made me smile. A dangerous habit. I opened the message. "Can we meet?" 20 minutes later, we were walking through a small park near the river. The sky was gray. The paths were nearly empty. Neither of us seemed in a hurry. For a while we talked about nothing. Coffee. Jake. The fact that half our friends were probably gossiping about us already. Then Claire suddenly stopped walking. I turned toward her. She looked nervous. Genuinely nervous. Which was unusual. Very unusual. "What?" I asked. She laughed softly. "I think I'm supposed to apologize." That surprised me. For what? For making everything complicated. I shook my head immediately. "You didn't." Claire smiled. "Alex, you didn't." For a moment she just looked at me, then stepped closer. "I hurt someone." The sadness in her voice was real, and deserved. I nodded. "I know." A tear appeared in the corner of her eye. "But I would have hurt him more if I married him." Neither of us spoke after that, because there wasn't really anything to add. We both knew she was right. The wind moved through the trees. A few leaves drifted across the path. Then Claire laughed. A small laugh. "What?" She looked away, then back at me. "Do you know what's embarrassing?" I shook my head. She smiled. "I spent months hoping you'd notice me." That made me laugh immediately. "Months?" Claire rolled her eyes. "Don't look so proud." "Claire, I spent almost a year trying to find excuses to sit next to you at parties." Now it was her turn to laugh. A real laugh. The kind I'd always loved. The kind that made everything else disappear. Then she took a deep breath and stepped even closer. No dares this time. My heart immediately started racing. No audience. Another step. No jokes. She looked directly into my eyes, then smiled. "Just so we're clear." A pause. "I choose you." And this time when we kissed, nobody was laughing. Nobody was watching. There was no game, no challenge, no dare. Just two people who had finally stopped waiting. 6 months later, Jake threw another birthday party. The same apartment, the same friends, the same terrible music. At one point, someone suggested truth or dare. The entire room immediately started laughing, especially Claire. She squeezed my hand, then leaned closer and whispered, "Best dare of my life." And honestly, I couldn't argue with that.